So whenever you're ready, Kathy.
All right. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission, Individual Advancement Program Fiscal Year 2021 Grant Review Panel. I'm Kathy Anderson, Commissioner from Indianapolis and Nashville. Today is April 14th, and we are meeting by conference call and streaming live from a webinar. We welcome applicants and other guests who may be listening in today and would like to remind you that you are muted for this review. There's no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. At this time, we would like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state. I'll call out your name. Tyler Busch.
Hi, I'm Tyler Busch. I'm the Director of Digital and Studio Arts at Calumet College of St. Joseph. I'm from Lake County, Indiana.
Thank you, Tyler. Joseph?
Hi, my name is Crook. I work in the defense industry here in Indianapolis. I also own my own business where I build custom motorcycles, fabrication, design. I'm a patron of the arts and happy to be a part of this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Mary?
Hi there, my name is Mary Johnson, President and Creative Director of Synapse Digital Studio, located in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Thank you, Mary. Megan?
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, Megan is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, Megan.
Well, hi there. My name is Megan Maynard. I'm the exhibitions coordinator at ArtLink Contemporary Gallery in downtown Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Thank you, Megan. Chaz?
Hi everyone, I'm Chaz Moniger and I'm a photographer and I work for the Farr Center for Contemporary Arts in Bloomington, Indiana, where I do educational programming and coordinate with our community to have art exhibits.
Thank you, Chaz. Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Williams. I'm based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm the owner of Image Nation and also Granite Films and Entertainment.
Thank you, Mark. Anna?
Anna Tragesser, IAC staff.
Chapin, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure, Chapin Schnick, IAC staff.
Thank you. All right. Now we'll begin the panel review, and this is how the process will work. I will announce the application and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it on the panel. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader has finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, that panelist will be placed on hold while the application is reviewed. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. These scores save automatically. Are there any questions?
I did forget to mention one thing, Kathy, if it's all right with you, let's plan to take a 5-minute break at 2 o'clock or when we are halfway through with the applications. Sound okay?
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. All right, let's begin. We'll start with application financial year 21, IAP Anderson. And the first reader is Chaz. Chaz?
All right, hi everyone. So starting from the beginning, sorry, let me get my bearings here. So I was thinking that this application could have had a more concise explanation in the project description. That would have been a little more ideal. It was unclear how the book relates to teaching the workshops. So that was my first thought with the criteria in the first part. I thought overall that this would be a good career development for the artist. Creating a book is definitely something that increases the impact on your career by having a book. I thought the quality of the artist's work was pretty good. I trusted that, you know, the workshop would probably be fruitful because the artist clearly can take a good picture. So yeah, great examples of work. I would have liked captions or short descriptions kind of describing what the photos were, perhaps. I think for workshops, you know, that's kind of important to kind of talk about your work so you can know how to teach. And then the public benefit and community engagement section, I would have liked the details about the workshop to like have identified more meaningful engagement. There wasn't a lot of detail about the workshop. So is it free? Is it like super accessible to people? It's hard to tell. And it was also hard to tell exactly what the workshop would be teaching and how the book relates to the workshop. So if we're going to be funding the book, how does that relate to the workshop? It seemed like the grant was for the book and not the workshop. So a little not very clear about that. So then the feasibility, basically there wasn't a lot of detail about the printing process and how feasible it would be to print this book. Also, the total projected cash income did not match the total projected cash expenses. So there was a confusion on the numbers. And then it was unclear if the timeline can be achieved since there's no details about how long the printing would take or why the book relates to the photography workshops. So that was my kind of overview for that.
Thank you, Chaz. The second reader is Mark.
I think the only different comment I would add to that is that I was pleased to see that there was already an established partnership, or that contact had been made for the workshops in the libraries, that library program, that the dialogue was made in advance and not just an idea of something that could potentially be done.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any new or opposing comments from all the panelists? Okay. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. And let me know if you need more time. Anyone need more time? Okay, we'll move on to the next application. Number 2, financial year 21 Individual Advancement Program Grant Bell. The first reader is Tyler.
Hello, everybody. So, the applicant shows significant evidence and provides a real compelling narrative of how this the workshop will add to the career development, and there are some clear goals described in the application. I felt that was strong. The supplemental materials in the portfolio showcased a real promising work in floral design, and the professional training could add to that. I thought that there was strong supplemental material and also educational background, a history of educational background. So that area of the pitch was strong. I feel like also the applicant does a commendable job articulating her positive influence on the local community. But with the engagement, I thought that the project, it seems like it didn't clearly define the community engagement, as if it seemed more transactional to me, like she was providing a service that was more business focused for her business, as opposed to really creating an opportunity for there to be engagement that's open to someone of the community without having to pay for that as a service. And I think if that area of the pitch was written more in terms of a workshop that was more accessible rather than being transactional, that the application would be a bit stronger. But the project does seem very feasible. And again, the applicant shows great promise and skill, capable of growing as an artist and really having an impact on the local community. I think it's just really about that idea of engagement and how that's defined, that would improve the overall application. That's what I have.
Thank you, Tyler. Second reader is Mary.
What I have to add to that is the engagement for me showed that the applicant understood their target audience very well, understood what their community, what was available within the community and who they were going to target specifically in Indiana. Whether or not somebody visiting their booth would purchase or not, that transactional element of it, that learning and engagement aspect is still available for anybody who is interested in exchanging money or not. That is the only additional input that I have to provide.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any other new or opposing comments? Sorry about that. Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Is everyone finished? Anyone need more time? All right. Application number 3, FY21 Individual Advancement Program Calhoun. First reader is Megan.
So in regards to the impact on the artist's career or their development, it provides a strong sense of where they are in their artistic career currently and where they want to be. I did think that the first paragraph kind of threw it off, but that was just my own recommendation to eliminate it just to make it more clear. But besides that, I thought it was pretty thorough. They broke down the steps so that we could all understand how they're going to complete all these time-lapse, all the time-lapse videos. They provided all of their supporting materials, and that the supporting materials suggests that there will have overall success with the project. Based on their application, I thought they had a clear understanding of their audience and the organizations that they want to work with through this process. The application discussed ongoing relationships, which suggest overall benefits just to the local community and Indiana artists and Indiana tourism as a whole. The application has a pretty clear timeline of the proposed project and how they're going to implement each step. The budget is detailed and easy to understand. They provided links for purchase. They talk about conversations that they're going to have with certain people and organizations, and they've already been underway, which I think is a positive. So it seems that the project could be to fruition. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Megan. Second reader is Joseph Crook. Joseph?
Hear me? Hello?
Yep, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
we can hear you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I don't have anything that contradicts the previous reviewer. I also feel that the applicant did an excellent job linking their kind of current state, their background, to where they felt that winning a grant such as this would take them. I'm a project management guy. I really appreciated the detailed cost breakdown that inspired a lot of confidence for me. And I also, one of the things I've been looking for as I review these applications are really detailed, thoughtful, how am I going to engage with the community, and how am I going to engage laypersons and try to get some net benefit from this grant. And I felt that the artists did a good job describing their plans for that as well.
Is that it, Joseph?
Yes.
Are there any new or opposing comments from other panelists?
Just from a Indiana's benefit perspective, engaging the community, I thought that the application did a really great job of highlighting a unique part of Indiana and how they would help to capture a different look at some of our communities.
All right, please finalize your scores and update your online. Does anyone need more time? All right. I'd like to request that the first reader just give a sentence or two, very brief little summary of the project for those who have not a chance to read it. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Our next grant is number 5, FY21 Individual Advancement Program Grant Chamberlin. Is that right? Yes. And our first.
We've actually skipped one. Should be Carstens next.
Okay, thank you. Financial year 21 Individual Advancement Program Carstens. And first reader is Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. As a quick refresher, this proposal was mostly an expansion of a current project called Glass Breakfast Gallery, in which the artist is seeking to conduct additional art interviews with Indiana artists. It was, let's see, expansion, and the intent here is to grow in his craft and his career. So that was really pretty direct. However, it wasn't fully clear to me what his current position was and his work, and also how these additional interviews, continuing to do 4 more additional interviews, would improve his practice or enhance his skill set or build new skills for filming. But it was good in that it sought to increase exposure for additional Indiana artists outside of himself. That's certainly a positive one, and it creates the potential to reach new audiences. But in that, I longed for a little bit more thinking on how he might reach new audiences outside of his current methods and his current audience. I longed for some expansion thought. I saw in his proposal there were some ideas on organizations that he could potentially partner with. So that was a proactive thought on expansion. The specific part of his budget, which I found to be concise, feasible, and certainly appropriate, was notably to purchase a hard drive array, which would be required to store a lot of the high-end footage that would result from these interviews, and some compensation for his editorial time. So another thing I longed for, he had a link to some of his work, his body of work, a demo reel online. I found part of it not relevant to the proposal, and longed to see more of his work. He said early on in his proposal that he wanted to use this to grow more from a hobby to a professional practice, but I also note that he did not select as an emerging artist later in his application. So I found a bit of a disconnect on that, but otherwise a very interesting project. I think a good project for promoting Indiana arts and artisans.
If I could provide a little bit of clarification.
Mm-hmm.
That early career category could certainly be confusing. I think what maybe you're referring to later on in the application, an applicant has the opportunity to opt into the early career category if they want, which is just folks who opt into that category are paneled together, and by folks who either are in their early career or work with folks in early stages of their career. So kind of a hard thing to define, but maybe that helps clarify some of the career stage that felt conflicting. So is that more confusing or helpful?
That's certainly helpful. That's certainly helpful. And I think maybe I latched on to that statement of using this funding and the exercise of additional interviews to help him grow from a hobby to a professional. Felt like to me that was indicating an early career. So.
Thank you, Mark. Our second reader is Mary Johnson.
I would suggest that one of the things that would have helped me for this application is the way that it was presented, having a little bit of a summary for the project detail, and then going through and laying out in further detail, either in bullet points or just a larger summary. To me, that would have helped to clarify a bit more about the goals of the project and how the applicant would seek to go about completing those goals. That's the only additional feedback that I would have.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any new or opposing comments from other panelists? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Does anyone need more time? Okay, we'll go on to number 5 now. FY21 Individual Advancement Program Chamberlin. Our first reader is Joseph Crook. Joseph?
Hi, yes. The artist Daniel Chamberlain is working on or developing a series of mindfulness installations that combine meditation and yoga with the video projections, banners, and immersive audio. He has developed slow-moving projections of mandalas, that he's collaged with digital photos of plants, animals, etc., that are intended to go along with the yoga and the meditative practices that he leads. The first parts of the application, I thought that the applicant did a good job of describing his current career status, how the grant would dovetail in and kind of propel him on into the next phase, what his plans were of staging the Basking in Gravity, which is the name of the art installation that he's seeking a grant money for, not only across Indiana, but also across the Midwest. One of the concerns I did have regarding the descriptions of his career goals is that they did seem a little near term and limited in scope in that respect. And some of the goals, I guess I would have liked to have seen goals that were, I guess, a little bit better defined in terms of SMART, are they measurable, achievable, realistic, time-based, and kind of tie those back into the budget. With regards to the quality of the artist's work, it's pretty apparent looking at the stills, looking at the data that was provided, that the artist is very experienced in the fields of meditative yoga, and has experience leading groups and has a vision of how photography, digital photography, photo manipulation, tying that into mandalas and bringing that into the studio where he practices his meditative yoga. I'm sorry if I missed it, but I didn't see a video. I saw images of the yoga practices and of his sessions, and I certainly saw the images of the mandalas that he developed. What I think I would have liked to have seen would be videos that kind of show him hosting these sessions and how he actually ties in one to the other. It was a little difficult for me to envision that, and happy to accept that that's just a limitation on my part. In terms of public benefit and community engagement, I did struggle a little bit in this case. I thought that the applicant described what his vision on how this installation would impact the persons that he reached, but what I felt that his intended audience is pretty pretty narrow, respectfully. You know, you're talking about a subset of Hoosiers here that would be able to really benefit and experience the investment in this artist's vision. If I had any constructive criticism on the application as a whole, it would probably rest here, and that's that this artist is particularly challenged with their vision, trying to find a way to bring it to the masses and really try to get the most engagement from the community so that the most people could benefit. And meditation and yoga, it's intimidating for a lot of folks. So I think I would have liked to have seen a plan on how, through the use of the grant money, they could have engaged a wider group of Indiana citizens. In terms of feasibility, I think, like I said earlier, the applicant did a really good job of describing their cost breakdown. It was clear that they had this really well thought out, and they know where every penny of that money is going to go. And I do think that if they were awarded, that they would execute the plan successfully. Overall feedback, nothing beyond what I've said. I appreciate the vision, but I do feel that this would be appreciated by a small subset of what could be a wider potential audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our second reader is Chaz. Chaz?
Hi, everyone. So what I have to add is this application could have been stronger with listing actual partnerships and organizations as places that the applicant would be taking this project on the road to. I think based on the last reviewer, to kind of sum it up a little more, I think that actually talking to places and showing, like, I'm going to be taking this project to this place and I've talked to this place. It was just a little unclear where the audience would be because there was no actual organizations on where you would take this project on the road to. So it could have been stronger with actually listing out those organizations or those places that you would take this project to. It currently has a home, and so that's great, but that shows like there has been success, but it's not as measurable if you don't have if you don't really list or explain or describe what the audience would be and where the places you'd be taking this project to would be. And I would have liked to see more examples of the textile work. And a note on those videos, there was a link to the videos, but I think it would have been easier to access them if the links to the videos were more directly in the application. That would have been more accessible. But yeah, there's strength in that this project has been done, and the applicant seemed very, like, there's a lot of experience behind it. And again, it's just hard to measure how there would be increased public engagement without having a concrete idea of where this project will be going past Healer. So yeah, so basically it's just hard to measure that criteria in that way. But yeah, I think there's strength in the actual program. It's obviously been done, so that was good to see. And yeah, just kind of more details on what the audience would be and where you would be taking this project to would have been really helpful to gauge the feasibility and to measure the success and all that. And I'm done.
Thank you, Chaz. Are there any new or opposing comments from other panelists?
I just wanted to note, I just wanted to make sure that, Joe, you were able to view, there were a couple of videos submitted with this applicant, but it was a little hard to find because they were linked within the PDF. So I've just messaged you, chatted you, the 2 Vimeo short videos. If you didn't get a chance to look at them, go ahead and take a few minutes to do that. And we can also give you more time at the end of the meeting if you need time to view those, and then update anything you need to.
Okay, thank you. I'll amend my comments accordingly.
Thank you.
No need to slow down the process here.
Okay, thank you. And if anybody else needs help finding those as well, please speak up.
In regards to community engagement, I think this applicant at least is eager to get involved with the community. They describe the more individual experience, which I think that could be kind of neat, just to be so individualized. I think it's a nice experience for Indiana residents. And they do seem committed to try to form all these new relationships with organizations, and they just seem eager, which I think will suggest success in the project.
Thank you, Megan. Anyone else? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Does anyone need more time? Okay, moving on to applicant number 6, financial year 21, Individual Advancement Program Hovis. Our first reader is Mary Johnson. Mary?
Applicant Eric Hovis is a new video game developer who is creating a vertical slice, which is a proof of concept for a open world adventure detective horror video game that they are creating. The applicant has also discussed providing some online recap videos of their process making this video game. The impact on the artist career here would be beneficial in terms of receiving additional tools necessary to for the speed of the project. A project like this takes an immense amount of horsepower, if you will, to complete. So having the right tools is essential, A, just to get it done, and B, to get it done on time. What would have helped here, I think, is if the artist would have laid out a little bit. The artist talks about using various resources to help them learn the skills. And for me, it would have been helpful had they have been a little bit more specific. They went through and listed quite a few, but narrowing it down to specific experts in the field would have provided a much stronger argument towards how that would further their education in this. The artist has provided images of some of the characters they have created before. However, a project like this, it takes multiple steps from design to modeling, rigging, lighting. The portfolio here shows a small sample of that. A more robust example of their portfolio, especially to the point of where they have the game developed, would have painted a larger picture for this, if you will. The artist describes a lot of willpower, a lot of ambition to get this done. Though there's a few things that I think would have helped here. Okay, so my perspective, having worked on video games before, a pipeline project management system works the best. The applicant had mentioned working on many aspects at once. I would suggest going down, breaking down your timeline to the various steps that you need done, specifically what part of the story you're going to be focused on, and create a clearer picture of that final proof of concept. Because this is an Indiana Grants program, I would maybe consider tailoring your storyline to something a little bit more Indiana specific. The genre is rather large, and I think because of the Indiana history, even you know, haunted places throughout Indiana or various detective works, our Indiana history is rich with those sorts of things, and incorporating those sorts of elements into your storyline would be very beneficial here. The engagement for the project talks about larger gamers as a whole. And we know that there is a specific genre. Yes, everybody plays video games, but we know that there's a specific genre and demographic of people who are more likely to play video games. So tailoring the application, A, for that demographic as a whole, but then B, for our Indiana communities, whether it is specifically pointing it towards venues where these videos can be watched live stream or present locally at like a comic book store. Something that hits a little bit closer to home would have made that stronger. What I really appreciated about this application is that they are only focused on just a vertical slice, because creating a video game is so time consuming. To just get a small part of that game out and up as a proof, I think, so that they understood the size of what they're going for. I would just suggest go ahead and break that down a little bit further into a pipeline project management format.
Thank you, Mary. Our second reader is Tyler Busch. Tyler?
So, everybody hear me? Okay, good. So very ambitious. I'm really inspired by new media. It's an area that I'm just now actually getting into. I'm a former studio artist that kind of has evolved in landscape. So I really thought that this application stood out amongst a lot of the others because of that. And it's kind of, you know, we're all living in this virtual world now, right? And you know, this notion of community is kind of changing. And so, I mean, even looking back on it now from when I went and scored this thing, I'm completely thinking about it in a different way. So, you know, what about this notion of community? And, you know, in the application, there seems to be a goal of focusing on an audience that is very niche in terms of an existing independent gamer community. But how does that community then, how can this application be shaped in a way that really focuses on an Indiana community as well? And so there's kind of where I have some issues with the application. But I feel like an artist like this is someone that should be definitely be looked at in terms of funding, but that there still needs to be a way that this project becomes focused on the local. So there was an area where I think the application could be strengthened, and hopefully maybe going through this process that artists can take those notes and figure out a way to make it available, or you know, to create opportunities to, as Mary said, include narratives that are Indiana centric in the genre. There's so much from Indiana history that can be interwoven into the actual script and storyline of the game itself. So that could be a way of strengthening it as well. lastly, I thought that perhaps the feasibility, Mary, you may know better than I, in terms of building a PC for building, not playing games, but actually building them and the software that it takes to create. I felt like at 2000, it might be a little bit underfunded. And there wasn't any mentioning of much more funding to match that, to build the kind of PC needed along with the software to create a workstation robust enough to do the work that's needed to be done. That's my kind of 2 cents. But again, I really like the idea of new media, and it's kind of an area that maybe, there isn't a lot of applications in that kind of space, and I'm excited to see maybe where this artist will go.
Tyler, to bounce off your comment on whether 2000 would be enough to for a computer that could build something like this. The specific model and components that the applicant has listed would be a little bit more on the lower end of things, but certainly has the applicant has both the resources from family members who know computers, plus the specific parts that are required to make something like this happen are available in the model that they selected.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or new comments? All right. Please finalize your score and update your online comments.
Cool.
Does anyone need more time? Okay, we'll move on to the next grant. After this grant, this will be halfway done, so we'll take a little 5-minute break. Don't disconnect, just go get something to drink or stretch your legs, whatever you need. And we'll come back in front of our school, finish this grant first. Number 7, financial year 21, Individual Advancement Program Lozano. Our first reader is Mark Williams. Mark?
Hi, thank you. To recap, this proposal is to complete and publish 200 children's books, and also to put on some workshops in the Knox County Public Library, County Library, with 10 children to create their own books. So a way of kind of paying that craft forward. I felt the applicant was very clear about his decades of experience with graphic design and his, I don't know if transitional work or crossover work in other mediums to speak to his creative streak, if you will. It was pleasing that he had already reached out and made the connection with Knox County Public Library as a partnering resource for his proposal. It's clear that his project will utilize his graphic arts talents in application. That this is a project that he conceived all the way back in 2009. So he's been nurturing this one for quite a while. What I longed for in his application was to see a little more of his work outside of the images of the book, to speak to more of. I mean, for decades of work, I'm sure there's some stellar things that he could bring to bear that would show his greater, deeper talents. What I also longed for was a better understanding of the intended audience for the book, the age group audience, because I had a little bit of a difficult time evaluating the book samples, not knowing if that was for, say young children 3 to 5, or if it was the perhaps 10 to 12-year-olds where he intended to bring in to create their own book. The grant would clearly facilitate his artistic journey and help advance that. His budget, while specific, appropriate, and certainly feasible, did not have the detail that was identified as the income being all income from the Arts Commission grant for the $2,000. One other thing I longed for overall in this was there's an implied connection between printing and producing the book and paying that forward with kids and sharing that craft and expertise with kids in the library workshop. But I didn't understand fully what that connection is, how those two. I longed for a little more of how they're related. It almost felt at some points like it could have been two separate applications with two separate viable projects at the same time. And part of that, you know, I think might just be my human nature. I longed for a little more context of the son's role, as in, you know, is there a connection between the son and the workshop? Did they go to the library together? Is that the connection? I just, you know, maybe out of human nature, I was trying to impart something to his application that may not have been there. But overall, I saw a strong connection between his project and his talent and his career.
Thank you, Mark. Our second reader is Megan Maynard. Megan?
I agree with a lot, so I'm going to just, he didn't focus on. I think I struggled with how the project's going to provide like an opportunity for ongoing engagement. Like after this happens, he does describe that the Knox County Public Library is going to continue like to promote the project and make this engagement to the community, but it would be stronger if it was just a little more specific or thorough. But overall, like our previous reader, I think he was pretty strong overall.
Thank you, Megan. Any other new or opposing comments?
I just want to say that the fact that I'm pretty sure in the application, the applicant says that it will donate some books to the library. So I thought that was some real lasting impact, that the library would have copies of the book. That to me spoke volumes, that anybody for years from now can go and like look at the books. It's outside of the workshop. So I thought that was some good lasting impact.
Thank you. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Does anyone need more time? All right, let's take a little 5-minute break. See you back here in 5 minutes. Again, don't disconnect or anything. We'll leave your camera on and we'll just step right back in. Thank you. Along now to the next grant, number 8, FY21 in the Independent Advancement Program, Individual Advancement Program, Monday. Our first reader is Joseph Crook. Joseph?
Hi. Yes, so let me scroll back up here to the tippy top. Right. So the applicant Mundy, sorry, apologies if I butcher your name. The applicant Mundy is seeking the grant to fund 2 separate events leading up to the release or the production and release of a short film starring himself as a visual representation for the artist's musical album titled Times Like This, which he's currently in development of. The visual parts he intends to try to speak to different issues that members of the urban community are facing: financial, emotional, spiritual, mental stresses, parts of living, and parts of living in an urban environment. Looking through the application, sorry, let me go to my notes. I thought that the artist did a really good job of describing the project. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more description on how this project would have impacted his, kind of next phases of his career. I mean, it's obvious that, having a robust community-driven video to go along with your music release, the potential marketing that creates. But it just would have been nice to have seen some of that, I guess, worded out in the narrative for us. And not just the near term, but also the long term. A lot of and I'll talk about this a little later, a lot of the application revolves around different issues in the Indianapolis urban community, and how the artist kind of wants to try to tackle them. This grant is, the application is kind of gives the reader a feel of a stepping stone, a turning point in the artist's career. So it would have been nice to have seen a little bit more thought on what the long-term outcome of a trajectory that this grant might aid would look like. I do think that in terms of using music to aid a community and actually aid specific, issues that individuals deal with in the community, and how a musician who's been successful elsewhere in their career can come back and do that, especially in their own area. I think there's definitely a pathway there, and you can almost envision it in your head. But I would have liked to have seen that, I guess, articulated a little bit more. The artist shared his music video, which certainly demonstrated his talent, not only for music, but the ability to produce and edit and promote a video. So certainly kind of quelled any concerns I had about, the individual artist's ability, not only in their current discipline of music, but also in their branching discipline of videography. I think what I would have liked to have seen was maybe a second video. And I mean, obviously I know that this is what he's kind of asking for money for, but even if it were just a straw man kind of a video of, here's the community I live in, here's the, this is the kind of conversations I would want to have with individuals in the community. This is the kind of, the kind of community I want to try to aid and support. And these are, maybe go to if there's another event in the city that's being put on by another community organizer, this is the kind of thing that I'd like to try to do. Here's some of the things that this grant will allow me to do, but do differently and better. And here's how I'll be able to make my mark and my contribution on it. I guess having the one music video kind of left me trying to fill in the blanks a little bit. Around the community engagement, I've been kind of hitting on it. The project feels really oriented around the community. Between the narratives, I definitely got a sense of how the grant would be put to use, and you know, how it would aid a very specific yet common community in Indianapolis. And again, kind of going back to what I said, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more robust plans for the event. I got a feel for that somewhat in the budget part. And it's clear that the artist wants to put their energy towards aiding the Indy's urban community. But I think had they fleshed out that part of the application a little bit more, it would have made the application a little bit stronger. And then down to the project management bit, the cost management, I thought that the applicant did an excellent job detailing the cost breakdown. I found it to be well thought out. I thought it reflected the types of events that the artist had envisioned. And honestly, I even leaned on the cost management side of it a little bit to help paint a picture of what the community-based event was going to look like. So yeah, all in all, I think it was a strong application. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our second reader is Chaz.
Hi. Yeah, I have some disagreement with application, unfortunately. I would say that there was a disconnect between what the project is. I thought it was actually unclear. In the short description, it's a music video for an EP. In the project description, it's a film to help promote local organizations, I think. So it's unclear what the goal is and how those two mesh. So, and it's also unclear what the relationship and partnership with the two organizations listed are for the applicant. Thought quality of work, I liked the video. I thought that was a strong aspect. It seems like the public benefit would be strong, but again, this would have been a good part of the application to talk about the relationship and the connection to the organizations that this video would benefit. And it would have been good to mention like an artist talk or a workshop about this project, and again, to just kind of describe exactly what this project is doing, because it was very unclear to me how this would work. And then I thought the feasibility section, unfortunately, the timeline conflicts with the project overview dates. So I hate to see that, but in the project management section of the application, it says until July 2021, but within, if you look in the document, it says July 28th and August 28th would be of 2021 would be when the workshop and the short film premiere would be, which is actually outside of the date range of the grant. So that was an oversight on the applicant's part, I think, unfortunately, that this to me made the grant ineligible. For the grant, this project is ineligible, in my opinion, because it clearly states that July 28th, 2021 and August 28th is when this would actually be happening. So that's unfortunate. And then the feasibility parts, they were thought out, but they were in the wrong sections. So that's just something for applicants to keep in mind, that you really want to make sure you're putting the numbers in the right spots. There was some confusion on where to place like the total in-kind donations or whatever, like those were a bit off in which section they were. So yeah, unfortunately, I thought it was a little unclear what the project was, and then the dates seemed to fall outside of the grant, what the grant permits.
Thank you, Chaz. I will provide some clarification on that really quick. Chaz is great at finding those details. You are correct. Things that take place outside of, you know, the eligible dates are July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. So that is what we can provide funding for. And so at this point, while it's unclear, it is unclear to both me and I think probably to some of you as well, what is being proposed in those dates. And so you should basically, my advice to you is, evaluate what's feasible within just the dates that you know, July 1st to June 30th. How that, how his career can be developed or artistic professional development can happen between those dates, community engagement between those dates. And so if there's anything that falls outside of those dates, based on what you can tell, it does not really add to what he's proposing. So it's kind of like that you can only evaluate based on what you know will happen in between those two dates. That helps. So you are correct in that we did not mark it ineligible because it was not clear that the entire project would be outside of it, but definitely those elements are.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I just want to add, sorry, that, yeah, I think it was a little unclear, and so I was a little confused on that, so thank you for that clarification. It does say rough date in the application, so I guess it's just a learning lesson for applicants that, yeah, just make sure you have the, the time management of your project, and that's clear.
Okay, thank you. Any other new or opposing comments? So, okay, so please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Anyone need more time? Okay, moving on to the next grant, number 9, financial year 21 Individual Advancement Program Olive. And the first reader is Tyler Busch. Tyler?
So this application shows some really strong supporting material. There's definitely a narrative of a career arc here that's has a history of both range and talent worthy of support, I think. It's really focused on career advancement, the majority of the grant and what it would be used for. But the artist also has been connecting with community for a long time and has a really strong plan for promotion of the work itself, including the use of internet applications, including a marketing plan itself. Even though the artist is not planning any direct event for community engagement related to this, she's really articulating how the work connects with the community and how her history of engagement ongoing will continue. I feel like the project's realistic and feasible based on her clear and focused budget. There's an overwhelming sense of humility with how she has approached and written the need for funding. Yeah, and I think the budget is very realistic, clearly laid out, and there are some goals that I feel are very reachable. So, I mean, I think also I'd like to just mention the fact that the supplemental material, like I said, the work is very, very, very beautiful. So, that's my review.
Thank you, Tyler. Our second reader is Mark Williams. Mark?
I listened to Tyler. I feel like he was reading my notes.
I mean, Mark, it's just real clean and like focused, and that's kind of that's what I got from it.
In short, yes, I agree. It was well written and easy to follow and easy to understand the direct connection between her proposed activities and her career. And I will also say I agreed. I longed for a little more thought, even if just, ideas and brainstorming, how that advanced product or the resulting work could be taken to the public or shared with the public for some benefit. But overall, a strong proposal.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any new or opposing comments?
Well, I did have one about in the feasibility a little. Oh, actually, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. Never mind.
That's all right, Chaz. All right, so please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Anyone need more time? Okay, moving on to number 10, FY21 Individual Advancement Program Grant Puffer. Our first reader is Megan Maynard. Megan?
The application for Puffer, the plan is to design and build this portable outdoor pop-up space called the Break Box in Marion, Indiana. Let me scroll down here. The application thoroughly describes their artistic background, their future goals, and the proposed project. They provided the materials, and they show the materials they provided support the skill set and the background to achieve their proposed project. The application describes the impact that it will have on the community of Marion, Indiana, and any opportunities that are enabled with that project. The community engagement section, I think, would be stronger if the applicant would provide maybe an example of a potential craftsperson or a local business that would utilize the Break Box. But it's understandable given the research for the project is included in the timeline. Also, I was a little unclear on that too, if anyone has clarity in regards to having craftspeople or local businesses utilize the space in regards to managing it or any type of sign up or how that would play out. In regards to the feasibility, the application broke it down into months, but it's not really clear how achievable these tasks are within the time. I think the application would be stronger if they broke down the cost of the individual materials and supplies, like the estimated cost of metal, estimated cost of wood, etc. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Megan. Our second reader is Joe Crook. Joe?
Yeah, I really don't have anything to disagree with the previous reviewer's statement. The only thing I was going to point out, they already pointed out, and that was that, I think for me, the weak spot in the application was really around the cost projected expenses. Reading through the application, I was able to get a vision of what the pop-up was going to look like. I was on board with all of that, and I was, kind of seeing it. And I know personally, working on projects for clients, and it's you kind of have to have a good feel for what the costs are going to be from the beginning. Do a bottoms up kind of analysis on what your budget's going to be. And this really feels more like a top down kind of a thing. And I guess I was hoping to see the former.
Thank you, Joe. Any other new or opposing comments?
Hi, I'm going to chime in on this one. I had a question about, in the application, it was stated that city officials haven't been consulted yet. So it was hard to measure for me if it was going to be achievable. So I don't know if anybody can talk on, like, would it be the bit, like you kind of mentioned before, I think that's a really strong point that, like, is it going to be the businesses or is it going to be like the city, like who takes care of these? I think to me it was hard to measure the achievability of it if no officials of the city or town are consulted. So that was one thing that I would have liked to see, that to make it definitely a possible project to happen.
I agree with that sentiment. When I was on the board of an outdoor sculpture committee, one of the things we had to consider was just basic insurance for the sculptures, and making sure that the public that would interact with them would be safe, as well as permits from the city based upon where we were located and what their ordinances were for. So part of, especially with the portability of this, is just ensuring the public safety as they interact with it.
Okay, please finalize your scores and update your comments online, please. Anyone need more time? Okay.
I believe that the next application is a conflict of interest. So we're going to kick Chaz out for just a second, and then we'll bring it back in when we're done with this application. Thanks, Chapin. Okay, we're ready, Kathy.
Okay. Number 11 is FY21 Individual Advancement Program Reynolds. And our first reader is Mary Johnson. Mary?
Photographer Adam Reynolds has proposed to create a series of abstract compositions utilizing a large format pinhole camera. The title, working title, is Obscura Abstracta. Abstracta. So the artist here was able to describe their experimental process in detail. They shared a strong understanding of their medium and how this would go ahead and further their career in the future. This particular project is outside of the realms of the artist's particular main career goals. So overall would help them become more well-rounded in their craft. Based on the samples that the artist did provide, it shows that they have a strong understanding of how to do this particular abstract technique. And then also, you know, how this would help them become a well-rounded individual. As far as the quality of work goes, the artist was able to, the samples they provided still show that they had an eye for picking out compositionally sound pieces when we take when we grade them against things like color and balance and shape and movement as we look at a project. As far as the public benefit, this particular applicant is very involved in their Indiana community. However, this project doesn't necessarily have a particular audience themselves. Rather, it would impact the local community as a whole just by being there, being available for the public. They had talked about how this might lead up to the creation of workshops. You know, and the artist did a very good job of sharing a story on their own experience with pinhole workshops in the past. what would have made the application a little bit stronger is including how they would achieve that one-on-one community engagement with a workshop. As far as the feasibility of the project, the artist has demonstrated they have a clear understanding of what it takes to produce a project like this. Has a background in showing their work, and just demonstrated that they have the know-how to get it done.
Thank you, Mary. Our second reader is Tyler Busch. Tyler?
So, yeah, so, I really appreciate the artist's attempt to push into new methods, techniques, and philosophy, forms and genres for them as an artist themselves individually. And I think the strength of this particular application rooted in the supplemental materials of portfolio items and the proof as well. That was something that really kind of sold me a little bit on the application. But the educational programming initiatives and workshops are really what I think drives it home, specifically providing youth access to media education, which I think is so invaluable. I too, like Mary, would have liked to have seen a little bit more, maybe based on the curriculum development of that. That would have strengthened it, and see just a little bit more in detail how those workshops would be designed. How long would they be, and what all would go on with at those workshops. But overall, very strong in terms of its community engagement and its benefit to the community. Budget seems realistic, focused, and attainable. Yeah, I mean, the education is super important for community engagement, and so I think that's really where the strength of the overall application lies. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyler. Are there any new or opposing comments? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments.
And we can let Chaz back in, Chapin. Thanks.
Anyone need more time? Okay, moving on. Grant number 12, FY21 Individual Advancement Program Sholly. Our first reader is Joseph Crook. Joe?
Yeah, so James Sholly would be working with the team to produce a commercial article for the 13th issue of the Indiana Design. Every single time the UPS guy comes, he flip a knock, and I put a sign on the door that says "Don't knock." What does he do? He knocks. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It just brings humanity to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Joe?
Sorry about that. My two girls are protective. Sorry.
Would you like us to go on to the next one and we can come back to this?
No, I'm back in front of my computer now. Apologies for that.
No problem.
Yeah, so again, Mr. Sholly is going to be developing an article for the 13th issue of the Indiana Design History Journal. It's going to document the story of a little-known but much-deserved Indiana architect, Jan Rutenberg. So reading through the application, I felt that the applicant, I got a strong sense of where they came from, where they're going, and how this fits in with their overall plan. Reading through the application, I appreciate that this individual applicant has a story to tell about little-known Indiana designers, that he wants to spend his efforts and talent giving them a voice and getting them the visibility that they may have not received in their contemporary days. And I definitely walked away from the application with a sense of how this project would fit in to that overall, I guess, program, for lack of a better term. Let me find my notes. Yeah, I did like the community development part of the application. I found it to be well thought out with specific venues, identified in the Columbus area, describing what those events would look like, how he would interact with different people in the community. Reading the application, I walked away from it feeling confident that the applicant had put sufficient thought into how the project would be pointed towards and support the specific community. The project management side of it, I also found to be pretty well thought out. It was time-based. It had good cost descriptions. And let's see here. Yeah, I didn't find any glaring flaws or concerns reading through the budget. Overall, I really don't have any harsh criticisms of this application. And sorry for the interruption. My girls are sorry too.
No problem. As I said, it just brings a little humanity to what we're doing. Thank you. The second reader is Megan Maynard. Megan?
I really don't have much to add in that regard. I agree with a lot what he had to say. I did find the, in regards to like the impact on the artist's career development, I found the paragraph about Roland Hobart a little confusing. I just think it could have been a little bit more condensed just to be more clear. But besides that, there were a lot of strong points.
And probably the other thing I didn't do a good job of mentioning was the different examples of previous commercial articles that were included as a reference. That helped me kind of get a vision for what to expect from the funding.
Thank you both. Are there any new or opposing comments? Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Does anyone need more time? All right, moving on to grant number 13, FY21 Individual Advancement Program Showalter. Our first reader is Mark Williams. Mark?
Thank you. This proposal is from an experienced artist, we'll say, who is still producing over the age of 70 and is a longtime contributor to the Brown County art scene. She is proposing to put on a retrospective exhibition of her work with an accompanying reception and lecture to then also build a website and take on other promotional efforts to drive some traffic to that event. The exhibition is really to focus on her journey into photography following a disabling accident. So it's a very personal exhibition. She provides a very clear history of her career and her career path, I thought, how she came into her craft. And she intends to make this exhibit or exhibition available to others. She said in a broad stroke, and I kind of hesitated there because I longed for some thought to more ways that she could share the exhibit, whether that's through partnerships with other venues, as a traveling art show, perhaps with a company narrative, since her ability to travel is limited. But it sounds like with the body of work she's got, it would be nice to be able to see it reach more audience across the state somehow. She was pretty clear with her goals, and her work samples supported her proposal. I did long for a few more samples that would represent the exhibition. She had a pretty broad stroke of types of work that she'd like to present, it from abstract to documentary to black and white fashion and wildlife. And I felt that there was a more limited set of examples that I wanted to see more of the diversity of her work that might be representational of this exhibition. The feasibility, she was very specific about the use of funds. I thought that was clear and articulate. But overall, I mean, her proposal, it's very clear that she has a passion for her art, for photography, and its ability to affect the human condition and connect with people.
Thank you, Mark. Our second reader is Chaz Nottinger. Chaz?
Hi. Overall in this application, what I don't think was clear is just basically, I thought there was a lot of details that were relevant to the project throughout this. So because of that, I found it hard to totally be sure what the project was. So you mentioned the passion and whatever, and I agree, that's really great to see like an earnest love for your work and to want to get your work out there. But at the same time, I think clarity on what the project is really important. Details are very important, but not too many that I have to like wade through. I couldn't quite tell what exactly this project was. There's some great, like you were saying, there's some great in the feasibility section, like an outline of what the money would go toward, which helped. But I think too many details can just be as bad as too little. And for instance, I think definitely having a location for this exhibition. There was a mention of my gallery, but I didn't know that this person owned a gallery or not, so I was a little unclear on where this exhibition would even take place. So I would have liked to see that, to know if, you know, again, if this is possible and where it's going to be. Those are important things to know, the location and organizations involved and all that sort of thing. And to add on to the quality of work area, I think installation photos are important for artists, just as a note to everybody too. And I think in this, it would have made the application stronger to see like installation photos of past studio exhibitions. That's just something to keep in mind for artists. I think that's really helpful. And apparently if she had, you know, these exhibits before, it would have been really great to see that. And yeah, I think also for the community engagement, that it's unclear when the artist talk would be. And again, I just think having more concrete, clear plans about the venue you would present at, that really does matter in these applications, in my opinion. Just clarity and like how this can move forward, to measure the feasibility and to measure, you know, the achievability of this. I just think it's really important to have very concise details. So that is what I feel is a little lacking in this application, although overall, yeah, it seems like this person has a lot of passion. That's great. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Chaz. Are there any new or opposing comments? Hearing none, let's go on and finalize your scores and update your online comments, please. Does anyone need more time? All right. Moving on to grant number 14, FY21 Individual Advancement Program, Vernon. Our first reader is Mary Johnson. Mary?
Aaron Harper Vernon is applying for funding to attend an online course and a conference that will help assist in completing a print portfolio. Looking at the application and the artist's career development, the artist communicated a very clear description of their experience within their medium, as well as their impact on the surrounding communities that they've lived in. They've chronicled how their career has shaped the various stages and their future plans. So for this particular project, they were able to communicate what is needed in order to get this portfolio completed. The artist's overall goals reach past our Indiana community, particularly for where this body of work is grounded in. But they did go ahead and they talked about how they would communicate through lectures and giving back to the community that way. Having a little bit more to support that would have, in this instance, made it a little bit stronger of an application. The quality of the artist's work, really showcases their experience in this background. And so to go ahead and get that additional education and feedback, the artist knows exactly how that would help to continue and advance their career. So their body of work was very essential to this particularly proposed project. As far as the public benefit, going back to that point, they're very honest in about how this would just help their career overall. Through association, the Indianapolis community would benefit, but the specific how this education and the further development of the career and how it would impact Indiana or the Indianapolis community wasn't very clear on that part. But as far as the feasibility of getting it done, making it happen, they have a demonstrated history of doing this. They have very specific timelines as far as when the educations would take place, when the conference would take place. And they did a really good job of just laying out how the different expenses would be used.
Thank you, Mary. Our second reader is Tyler Busch. Tyler?
So I found there to be unique and interesting narrative that the artist. I think there's a strength in this notion of a journey from. That the work itself was going to complete this journey for the artist in some way that would articulate this inner and physical journey from isolation in Germany to Indiana. So this really specifically in the work itself was this coming home, coming to community where there's this return to Indiana as a place and a locale. And so even wrapped up in narrative, I felt like there was an attention toward the place and the placemaking aspect of it. You know, it seems like there's a continually growing community in Garfield Park in Indianapolis. I don't know of it that well, a little bit. So there's an established place where this is very doable, and you know the artist shows that there's a credibility toward pulling off a gallery show, making it accomplished, successful, and that the work itself is worthy of that. Really strong, like I said, the work itself was very strong. So I think that I think was my only thing that I would have added to what Mary had already stated before. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's it.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank
No
you,
problem.
Mary. Are there any other new or opposing comments?
I have a comment on the feasibility again. The total projected cash income and the total projected cash expenses do not match. So I think that needed to be looked at more and figured out better. I think it is really important for those sorts of things to be correct. So yeah, that was just a little there's some confusion on that section. And also, I'll just chime in with one other thing. I actually was a little unclear on what the description was. I think that there is kind of a lot of things going on in this application. And I think Photolucida, I'm familiar with it and I know about it, but I think that needed to be described better. I think that I had to infer a lot in this, and I don't want to do that when I read these applications. I want the applicant to like clearly describe everything. So I felt that that wasn't as clear, though it seemed like this artist is really involved in the community, and that's great, and that helps the application. I think that makes it stronger. I think inferring things as a reviewer is not what I want to do. I want, again, that's kind of coming back to having more concise details and plans to lay out this project. So yeah, I just basically wish that Photolucida would have been described a little better. It wasn't clear at first that this is going to end up in a print portfolio at first. So I think right off the bat, that should have been stated.
Yeah, on that, the project description, like in the application, is a bit confusing just because it doesn't strongly reflect the project summary. So I also, I struggled a bit with the project description, or even with their artistic career status. I wish they would have broken down their artist bio and the artist statement just to include more of the specific information, just summarize it more.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Everyone finished? All right. This concludes the Individual Advancement Program Financial Year 21 Visual Arts 2D Advisory Review Panel. The public meeting has now ended, and we will say goodbye to the meeting guests at this time. Panelists, please stay on the line. This meeting recording will be posted on the program webpage in the coming weeks. And I'd just like to conclude this by telling you and reminding you that we're all in this together and we will get through.
Oh, so true. Thank you.